Hey everybody, this is Hana Rivas here at Team Elite, where we inspire you to dream big and go bold. We are continuing with our Think and Grow Rich series. Hi Vahid, thank you for being here with us.
Good to see you, Hana. I know last time we sat down, we talked about 3 feet from gold, but we weren't able to finish it up. But today we want to go, I want you to go over it, maybe read it, and then I'll put in my input a little bit, so that way we could, let everybody know what it is about. Because when you read Think and Grow Rich, especially the older versions, some of the vocabularies are different, and some of the words need a little bit of explanation. Obviously, I'm pretty sure we got a lot of smart people watching this video, so they could figure it out, but we're kind of doing this to put our own input in it.
Got it. Sounds good, guys. All right, so I'm going to be reading it straight from the book. Here we go, guys. 3 feet from gold. It says, one of the most common causes of failure is the habit of quitting when one is overtaken by temporary defeat.
It can't, you got to tattoo that in your brain.
Yeah.
That's like one of the most important lines ever. But okay, go ahead.
Every person is guilty of this mistake at one time or another. An uncle of R.U. Darby was caught by the gold fever in the gold rush days and went west to dig and grow rich. He had never heard that more gold was mined from the brains of men than has ever been taken from the earth.
Some of the versions they say brain, but brain is a muscle. So we're talking about our mind. Our mind is where there's the gold mine for our lives. So we gotta adjust that. A lot of people say brain. Brain is a muscle. Your mindset and mentality comes from your mind. So that's what we're talking about.
Okay. He staked a claim and went to work with pick and shovel. The going was hard, but his lust for gold was definite.
The key word over there is lust, meaning that your love is like intensified. That burning desire that we're going to get into chapter 1 and 2, and where Napoleon Hill talks about, or individuals have, it's very, very, so this is what happens. Like the gold fever of today would be like, designing an app.
Yeah.
Finding out a problem for millennials and have the solution for them, or find a challenge where all the baby boomers have, where you find a solution before they know that they need it. You come up with that solution. So this is still true till today. It doesn't have to be back in the days where we were like mining for gold, and people came from on the other side of Mississippi River, moving all the way to here, Colorado, California, different places for just mining gold. So this is what he's trying to say over here.
After weeks of labor, he was rewarded by the discovery of the shining ore. What is ore?
Shining ore is the same is the gold.
It's gold.
So they found the gold.
He needed machinery to bring the ore to surface. Quietly, he covered up the mine, retraced his footsteps to his home in Williamsburg, Maryland, told his relatives and a few neighbors of the strike. They got together money for the needed machinery and had it shipped.
So it's because they have had good reputation, good credibility with the family members. Obviously, if you go to Macy's and they got like a 80% discount, you're going to start texting all your friends, hey, by the way, they got a discount, you want to go there.
Yeah.
Or you go to a good movie or a good restaurant. So referral happens. Because you have credibility with individuals, guess what ends up happening? You start getting that referral. So they had good credibility with individuals, and they went and borrowed the money. But they did something unique where they retract and they made sure to cover up the mine because they didn't want nobody knows, right? So now that was their way of like hiding it and keeping the gold mine for themselves.
The uncle and Darby went back to work the mine. The first car of ore was mined and shipped to a smelter. Can you describe what a smelter is for everybody?
The individuals, these days is different, but back in the day it was the individual that kind of pulled out the impurity out of the gold. Because gold sometimes comes with different other minerals and different metals where you got to separate it to get the gold out itself. So now we're going to find out how pure your gold is.
Okay. The returns proved they had one of the richest mines in Colorado. A few more cars of that ore would clear the
You got to think about that, Hana. We're talking about the richest mine in Colorado. In the history, this is a big find for them.
A few more cars of the ore would be clear the depths. Then would come the big killing and profits. Down went the drills, up went the hopes of Darby and Uncle. Then something happened. The vein of gold disappeared.
There's a very cute vocabulary over there. Hope. Hope is not a strategy. So when you hope for things, that's wishful thinking. And Napoleon Hill definitely talks about that. It's not merely enough for you to wish for things. That's the difference between hope, strategy, goal, planning, sitting down and actually coming up with a rock solid plan and a strategy and put action behind it. So hope is not a strategy.
Then something happened. The vein of gold ore disappeared. They had come to the end of the rainbow, and the pot of gold was no longer there. They drilled on, desperately trying to pick up the vein again, all to no avail.
So what happened is they're mining, and they hit, I mean, he's going to talk about it, they hit fault lines where, you know, the gold is going like this. Obviously, gold is a heavy metal, so it's going to sink to the bottom, right? And then what happens is what? Gold is all over the place, but there's concentration of gold in some areas where that's where you want to start digging. So they hit little small pockets of gold, but then the gold just started disappearing. Not that it wasn't there, it's just that they mined it out, right? But then there was nothing else. They kept digging on.
Finally, they decided to quit. They sold the machinery to a junk man for a few $100s and took the train back home.
Keep in mind, that junk man is not a normal junk man, and we're going to talk about it 3 feet from gold. In the book talks about it that, you know, this junk man was planning on going into mining gold and mining industry, mining business for a long time. So he was saving his money, he was planning, he was meditating on that. So when you read this story, there's so many, pretty much all Napoleon Hill's success principles are embedded in this just one single story, which is less than 3 pages.
Yeah.
So you got to study this thing. It's not just I read it one time, novel, and go be done. No, you got to study. I'm talking about like word by word. You study it, and you got to know the reasoning behind it. See, this junk man was not a normal junk man. This junk man was meditating, was planning, and setting out goals to save his money, and then be able to go into the mining business when the opportunity presents itself. So now the opportunity, because if you got to think about it, a couple of $100 back in the days, that was a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
So a normal junk man, or what we call a recycled person, the person that does recycling, that even if you convert it to today's money, that's about at least $50,000. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So that person, it didn't just happen, oh, I want to go become a miner. No, he was planning on it, meditating on it, had goals, plans, saved up the money and everything else. And then now, if you continue, it tells you what that he did, which was pre-genius.
They sold the machinery to a junk man for a few $100s and took the train back home. Some junk men are dumb, but not this one. He called in a mining engineer to look at the mine and do a little calculating.
So, this is what happens. Entrepreneurs, business owners. Most of the time what happens to us is this. We take a path, we want to open a business, we think we figured it out, which is good. It's the beginning of all the riches is within an idea, right? So you got the idea, now it's in your mind. Now bring it on a piece of paper, you meditate on it, you study it, you read it affirmation a couple of times to yourself every day. You have it in front of your conscious, right? Now you're mindful of it. But here's what happens. There are some skills that you and I may not have in that specific industry that we're doing with. So what happens? You got to call in a mining engineer. Someone who's, it's like a coach, it's like a mentor, it's like a trainer, it's like a TA in school where you got basic questions that they want to ask you. Or when the professor has, office hours, you go in there, he presented to you the whole entire chapter, but there was some stuff that you didn't understand or you didn't know how to do it with efficiency. So what do you got to do? You got to put on the emergency brake, call in an emergency, don't quit. What happens? You don't know what to do with this, so you got to ask for someone else for help. That's where a lot of entrepreneurs, that's where our ego comes in.
Yeah.
Well, we're not able to ask for directions. I mean, I'm guilty of that. Whenever I used to get lost in the street before navigation and cell phones, all this stuff, right? My ego wouldn't let me ask anybody for direction. I'm like, no, I got to figure. So I'm spending time, gas, energy, effort, and I'm not getting to the place that I need to be because I had ego. Now, obviously with navigation, so it solved that problem. We got Google for that, Google Map. But you cannot have ego when you go into business. And here's another thing that we're going to talk about. We're going to share it in the next chapter. There's a difference between confidence and ego. Yeah. So we got to be able to differentiate those two. But go ahead.
The engineer advised that the project had failed because the owners were not familiar with fault lines. His calculations showed that the vein would be found just 3 feet from where the Darbys had stopped drilling.
So, Hannah, the richest gold mine in Colorado, and you stopped 3 feet from it. What would you do to yourself?
No one will see my face after that.
Right? I mean, we got to talk about like how much of a depression are you going to go into, how many doctors are you going to see, how much medication you're going to take, right? We're not talking about you winning the lottery. This is one of the richest gold mine back in the days. and we're going to talk about it. And it says a couple of $100 million in back in the days money, which I don't know if we calculate it right. It'd probably be over a couple of $1 billion that just like, and you stopped 3 feet. So how much is 3 feet? I mean, it's not even, I mean, if you wear size of 10 or 11 shoes, it's like 3 steps of your shoes, like literally like this big. This big, you stopped. So it's, I don't know what I would have done. I don't know. I every time I read this story, I think about it, it's like, wow. But then they didn't know that.
Yeah. You
see what I'm saying? So now that you and I know about it, it's like, whoa, what would you have done? Like, where, at what point do you throw the towel in? Say, you know what, I give it all and it doesn't work. You know, so it's one thing that's very, I mean, we do it all the time. We do it in marriage. We do it with girlfriend, boyfriend. We do it in our works. We do that in job. We do that for schooling. We do that for our careers. We do that when we open a business, when we want to finish a book, when we want to go and lose weight. I mean, all this, it doesn't have to be just a gold mine. You know, it's that goal that you had. The lust for money, the lust for income. So that's what happened. But go ahead.
And that's something that we are going to talk about later on. How do you keep that faith? Because I think that's the problem, is how do you know that you're just 3 feet away? So we are going to get into that, guys. So to continue, the junk man took millions of dollars in ore from the mine because he knew enough to seek expert counsel before giving up. Most of the money which went into the machinery was procured through the efforts of R.U. Darby, who was then a very young man. The money came from his relatives and neighbors because of their faith in him. He paid back every dollar of it, although he was years in doing so.
So he repaid back everybody because he wanted to keep his word, because he borrowed money and you honor that. And it does tell you in the story that he was doing so for many, many years. So he didn't just go and here's the money. No, he probably called everybody and said, listen, I don't have the money. But I am going to repay you. So I owe you $100. Let's just say, here's $10. Give me some time. I'm going to give you. So you just keeping your word. It doesn't have to be in documents, signature, contracts. They got to file a lawsuit against you to get the money. You just keep your word, and that's rare these days. But go ahead.
Long afterward, Mr. Darby recouped his loss many times over when he made the discovery that desire can be transmuted into gold. The discovery came after he went into the business of selling life insurance.
So we're talking about your desire transmuting into its physical equivalent, which is, in this case, we're talking about gold. So a lot of people, it's very, very difficult for people to grasp that concept because we didn't grow up with it. They don't talk about schooling, you know, in our formal education, they don't talk about that you can transfer your desire into equal. You can get something from your thought. That's the part that a lot of people are like, how does that happen? Well, your thoughts are a vibration. We're going to talk about that. Vibration, you just put it in the universe and it happens. So, I mean, you saw that with our Instagram account today that I told you, hey, right timing for everything. So whenever it needs to come, it'll come at the right time. You just got to have your faith that it will come at the right time.
Remembering that he lost a huge fortune because he stopped 3 feet from gold, Darby profited by the experience in his chosen work by the simple method of saying to himself, I stopped 3 feet from gold, but I will never stop because men say no when I ask them to buy insurance.
So he went into the business of financial services, insurance business, and he was doing that for families. But then he knew. So his biggest failure, when in you and I, we're talking about like billions of dollars that he wasn't able to come. That's a big, huge loss, right? But he didn't let that defeat him. He didn't quit permanently. It was a temporary defeat. So he could have been just like a lot of people, just throw the towel in and that's it. But he learned from his failure. He took that and he channeled it in the right way for him to be profitable in his next endeavor, in his next business opportunity.
And that's something we definitely need to talk about with everybody too, on how to persevere when times are tough. So I think that's
exactly what that was the reason why Napoleon Hill, you know, wrote the book with the help of, with the assistance of all other successful people, and that's something very, very big. We will be covering that.
Beautiful. Darby is one of a small group of fewer than 50 men who sell more than $1 million in life insurance annually. He owes his stickability to the lesson he learned from his quitability.
So now he's talking about being able to stick. And because he was able to quit, it made him very stickable. So what are we saying? Financial services, sometimes we talk about it with some of our, you know, agents, partners / co-workers, right? We talk about it. It's like, you got to dig a big hole, You got to plant your flag in there, and you can't just put gravel and just regular stuff around it, just make it all. No, I'm talking about you get the strongest cement from Home Depot, and you mix that up, you put it in there, and you're gonna just make it solid, 10 feet deep, where nothing could shake you. That's what he did. He started being more stickable to his business and whatever endeavor that we're doing, and that could be many different things for whoever's watching. How do you take this concept, apply it to your business? How do you take this and apply it into going to law school? And we're going to talk about that. Like, we got William K, one of the individuals that we work with. You know, he's an attorney, and when you talk about his story, is that, you know, he read Think and Grow Rich, and then he went to law school and became an attorney. So he dedicated his entire success to this book, which we're going to have him on our show soon. That I just talked to him through text message. We're going to set up a time where it's just like unbelievable how somebody could read a book and go become a successful attorney. And it changes the entire course of your life.
Man, before success comes in any man's life, he is sure to meet with much temporary defeat and perhaps some failure.
So temporary defeat and failure. So it's not the end of the world, right? The only time that it could be permanent is if you quit. But there are challenges, there are obstacles, there are many different things that you're gonna hit because you want to be successful. I mean, if it was easy, everybody else would be doing it. If there was no challenges, then it won't have as much as fulfillment at the end when you do finish up your journey.
When defeat overtakes a man, the easiest and most logical thing to do is to quit. That is exactly what the majority of men do.
I mean, that could be the best quote ever. Like, you and I are guilty of it many times over. Something goes wrong, and the first thing people say, "Oh, it's sign from God. See, I wasn't supposed to do this. See, universe is telling me." No, all what universe is doing is just sharpening you up for more. If you are not a millionaire today, that doesn't mean you can be a millionaire tomorrow. If you're not a millionaire today, that just means that you haven't built up the set of skills for you to be able to handle that. If you're not supervising 100 agents, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just that you haven't built up the skill set to be able to manage 100 people. If you haven't, I mean, we could talk about that later on, but that's what ends up happening.
I think that's definitely a great topic for us to touch on, is the difference between being gullible, knowing when to actually quit, and when to stick it through. So I think that would be a great topic we can touch on.
Definitely.
More than 500 of the most successful men in this country has ever known told the author the greatest success came just one step beyond the point at which failure had taken over them.
So if you fail, what should you know? And this is one of the probably most difficult things to do, unless you're like so gullible and you just get in and you just apply it. But for me, it was very difficult. So what do? The failure takes over. What should you know right away? If you've read the book many times over, you need to know my success is within reach. So I am 3 feet away from goal. So what happens? So now, should I quit? Should I throw the towel in? No. I gotta dust up, get the crap out, and just do what? Restart again. Right then and there, without any hesitation, and without loss of enthusiasm. Don't lose excitement. You went through failure, totally fine. What's the worst thing that could happen? Chances are the worst thing did already happen to you. So it can't get worse than that. So that's what the top 500 successful people back then told, and I'm pretty sure it could be still true till today, where the top 500 people successful. If you put them together, they'll tell you. Some people file for bankruptcy 4 or 5 times before they become successful. But here's the catch, Hono. Most people, they don't want you to know all the pain and suffering they went through for them to be successful. But if we did have a show for everybody to come on board and say all the struggles they went through, I mean, you saw the movie Pursuit of Happiness, right? Will Smith plays that, but Chris Gardner talks about, he actually slept in the public bathroom. But right now, I think he's a multi-millionaire, right?
Yes, he is.
So, did he want to share that with everybody? Probably not. If it wasn't because of the movie, I mean, he might have shown it and talked about it a little bit here and there, but imagine how brutal it is for your ego, how much it crushed. I mean, it's unbelievable what some people go through for becoming successful, but that's what inspires us. Motivation wears off. But that really inspires us, that the guy went from sleeping in the public bathroom with single father, with his child, right? and then be able to lift himself up, don't lose excitement or enthusiasm or anything else, and just go to work the next day as if nothing happened. Crazy. So go ahead.
Now, this last line, guys, is Vahid's favorite. Failure is a trickster with a keen sense of irony and cunning. It takes great delight in tripping one when success is almost within reach.
So it's a trickster. So what does a trickster do? Pulls a trick on you, right? So he's going to do this, and you're going to flip on that, right? You're going to fall down. What happens? You should know that a failure is a trickster with a keen sense of irony. Do not fall for it. Even if you fall down, you get back up and you just roll as if nothing happened. Hey, it's much easier to say it versus actually in action, but that's what it takes.
And do you think that comes from you having the faith that you know if you can get through this, it's going to happen?
Listen, a small amount of faith could move mountains.
Okay.
If you don't have your faith together, I don't know if you're going to make it in business. In my opinion, the number one thing you're going to need to be successful in any business, and let me go back for a second. There's a big difference between faith and religion.
Got it.
We're not talking about religion. We're talking about faith. That belief that you have internally with yourself and a higher power, whatever that higher power could be for you, right?
Okay.
That, hey, because I'm a good person, because I'm an honest person, because I want to do right by people, I want to help the community, I'm going to put good things out there, that the universe is going to reward me. And if the universe has not rewarded me, it's not universe's fault. I'm not doing the certain things that I need to do for universe to reward me that. So I'm going to perform more than what I get paid for. And that's another philosophy that Napoleon Hill has got, that we're going to talk about that later.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, this is wrapping up 3 Feet from Gold, everybody. Now, if you guys have any questions on what we just went through, we went through it basically word by word. So however you're feeling, you guys have questions for Vahid and I, comment them below. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Please, if you have any questions. But we're going to
continue these series. We're gonna put them all together in the videos, where we know a lot of people are individuals that are busy.
Yeah.
We know that you want to listen to it in your car, outside, while you go to gym, or maybe you go on a vacation trip. You want to refresh your mind, and everything else is going to be there. We're going to put that in there. But definitely, listen. One of the ways that we do this is by you commenting on what we're doing. We want to collaborate. We want a collaboration. We're enrolling you in what we're doing. So obviously, we're not getting paid for this, right? Yeah. So we're putting our time, but you putting it out there, us putting it out there, maybe potentially could help a lot of other individuals get familiar with, Napoleon's work, all his books and writings, and maybe they could become successful. Yeah. And my goal, my outcome out of this is that, those individuals could help somebody else, because that's how I was introduced to it 8 years ago, where a group of people were reading Think and Grow Rich, and I got introduced to it. If it wasn't because of that group, I would have probably not gone through this. Now, I know a lot of companies do have trainings. We have training in our office specifically on that, and we're putting together a lot of good workbooks, materials where we could just put it on YouTube, our webpage, or whatever. We'll find a way to distribute it to you guys. But definitely let us know what we can improve on, because we're not the expert at this thing. We've just been studying the book for a long time. We have a little bit more knowledge than the individual that just started, but I know some of you guys watching this been reading this for like 20, 30 years. So definitely help us if you can. We'll definitely welcome that.
All right, guys. Comment below one thing you learned today. We appreciate your time, and we're looking forward to the next one. See you guys.
All right, take care.